Good morning, and welcome back to the Mysticism Decoded Podcast. I am your host, Aleph Lev. I wanted to do a different type of video today, something that I call a random reaction. In general, besides my core work, where I am translating ancient texts from Kabbalah, Merkava, other sects of mysticism, I do have other interests and other things I want to cover. I don't want to put any limitation on the scope, but one of those topics is definitely the UAP disclosure process and everything going on with that. In the last couple of weeks, one of the most important and biggest deals that came out is this article by Michael Shellenberger pointing out that there is a secret program being run out of the Secretary of Defense office called Immaculate Constellation. Now, coming up soon on November 13th, there is a government hearing being led by Nancy Mace, where we are expecting an insider whistleblower to come out and shed more light on this. And we know that the government, Pentagon, NASA, whoever is actually involved, is doing everything they possibly can to get this hearing either delayed or canceled. I've even heard rumblings that they're trying to use the excuse of it causes danger to national interests, things of that nature. But Nancy Mace, from what I've heard, has said that this hearing is going to go on either hell or high water. But what I wanted to do is to get into this article written by Michael Shellenberger that really put the flashlight on it to begin with. I want to narrate it and give you a reaction to it. I have not read it yet myself. I've only heard it reported on. So as I read this is the first time I am going through it as well. So let's get right into it. This is from October 8th. Title: Pentagon is illegally hiding secret UFO program from Congress, whistleblowers allege. New government whistleblower reveals for the first time the name of the Unacknowledged Special Access Program, or USAP for short, for unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs for short. Underneath, we have a picture here of General Lloyd Austin. What side is he really on? We don't know. But all right, let's continue with the article now. One of Congress's most important responsibilities is oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and intelligence community in particular. The first article of the United States Constitution specifies this responsibility. This role ensures that powerful governmental entities operate within the bounds of the law, uphold democratic principles, and remain accountable to the American people. This responsibility extends to classified programs like Special Access Programs, SAPs. By law, the Department of Defense must notify the Gang of Eight, meaning the chairpersons and ranking members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, and the majority and minority leaders of the House and the Senate, and or the relevant congressional committees about their existence. The National Security Act of 1947 requires that covert operations and compartmentalized access programs by intelligence agencies, including the military intelligence community, be reported to Congress. Specifically, the president must provide a written finding that justifies covert action and submit it to the House and Senate intelligence committees. While the military and intelligence community may limit the amount of detail shared with Congress, the constitutional and legal responsibility remains. Sunshine remains the best disinfectant. Readers are, of course, welcome to disbelieve the whistleblowers and the evidence they provide of UAPs. I do not claim to know what they are. There is, however, a growing body of evidence that the government is not being transparent about what it knows about UAPs, and that elements within the military and intelligence community are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations. The Pentagon responded to this article after it was published. I have attached the full response at the bottom of the story. So, very simply, if parts of the government are not adhering to law, then by definition, they are acting illegally. So if they're required to make disclosures, follow certain steps and protocols for certain programs, even if they wish to limit the information they provide about the programs, they cannot just completely keep the House and Senate members in the dark, not to mention really the crimes against humanity they're perpetrating against society for keeping the nature of reality hidden. So just understand that from the very beginning, they are not following the legal protocols. As such, they are acting illegally. As such, their programs are illegal. All right, let's continue on. There is no evidence that any non-human or extraterrestrial intelligence has visited Earth, according to a May 2024 report by the Pentagon created in 2022 to study UAP, formerly called UFOs. We know that is absolute complete nonsense. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, assesses that the inaccurate claim that the U.S. government is reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology and is hiding it from Congress is in large part, the report concluded, the result of circular reporting from a group of individuals who believe this to be the case, despite the lack of any evidence. You know, I'm always curious whenever this statement comes up from the government. The book The Day After Roswell, that was authored by, I forgot the individual's name. You know, let's look it up for the hell of it. The Day After Roswell. All right, Philip Corso. That's his name. Lieutenant Philip Corso. It was his job to basically take in secret foreign information or foreign material and to distribute it wherever he felt it best to be distributed in order for it to be reverse engineered and then to be distributed within American society as it best fit. So why is it that Philip Corso, who authored The Day After Roswell, is not considered a reliable witness, and the evidence that he confessed and he put in writing in his book is always overlooked? So this statement, you can really argue it, you know, to the top of the sky, but why not start with Lieutenant Philip Corso? All right, let's continue on. The former director of AARO has since resigned his position and has repeatedly dismissed and ridiculed the topic, claiming that talk of the phenomenon is due mainly to a small group of individuals in the grip of a rumor-based religion. Sounds rather defensive to me. But critics say that AARO's 63-page history of the U.S. government's investigation into UAPs since the end of World War II was riddled with factual errors and poor referencing, including to Wikipedia. And the document was missing historical information that appeared in the 117-page UAP timeline document created by a former or existing U.S. government intelligence officer that Public published last year. And that is the name of this Substack blog of Michael Shellenberger. It's called Public. Christopher Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, wrote a lengthy rebuttal concluding, "This is the most error-ridden and unsatisfactory government report I can recall during or after decades of government service." So Chris Mellon, he seems to be one of the good guys, a former government employee that is pushing hard for disclosure. Hopefully it's not a false flag, but it seems that Chris Mellon is on the team of the good. And major political figures, including Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, Senator Marco Rubio, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and both Democrats and Republicans in Congress, have vouched for the credibility of UAP witnesses and whistleblowers. Not to mention, of course, over the decades where we've had hundreds or maybe thousands of individual people come out to give individual testimony about UAPs, and then the numbers of which who have actually been taken. I don't want to use the word abducted because I think it has too negative a connotation. And we know that a lot of people that have had physical interaction with ETs and UFOs have stated that they have been extremely positive. You can check out John Mack's book on this called Passport to the Cosmos, which is the second book he wrote after abduction. And I believe that he wrote the second book because he realized that he really sort of misled his readers in the first book. Not that it wasn't a good book in terms of information and provided credibility to UAP and individual witnesses that provided testimony, but I think he realized that he portrayed everything in too negative a light whenever it really wasn't so negative overall, and in fact that there were a lot of positive things coming out of ET interaction with humans. And in his second book, Passport to the Cosmos, he really focused on the positive side of things, which is the vast, vast majority of what really occurs between ET interaction and humans. If you get deep into witness testimonies, I'm not saying to the point where it's 100% positive. We live in a dualistic reality where that unity that is God, he split, and everything has duality. So there is good and there is evil, and there is no good without evil. So even, let's say, if 99.9% of interactions are good, you can't discredit or say someone who claims they've had a negative interaction is lying. But I just want to make the point that if you read Passport to the Cosmos, you will see another side of the ET interaction with humanity that is not reported on, and one that is vastly, vastly positive. Everything from spiritual enlightenment to literal intelligence improvement, the healing of illness or injury, things along this line. Also prophecy, especially whenever it comes to what's going to happen with the planet Earth. And I'll be getting into why prophecy is possible and a real thing in my core videos that focus more so on the nature of reality, the gateway process, Kabbalah, Merkava, it's all connected. But prophecy is another portion of the ET and human interaction, which is commonly reported and commonly comes to bear. All right, let's continue. "I've interviewed solid people," said former President Donald Trump in September. "Great pilots for the US Air Force, etc. They've seen things that they cannot explain." There's the picture of the Donald. God willing, we're going to see him back in office. I know that's a controversial statement. I don't care. If Donald Trump does not make it back to office, the United States is facing some scary times. And if you want to know what could possibly be in store if Donald Trump does not win, just take a look at Venezuela. But anyways, here we go. Trump has said repeatedly that the government has information about UAPs that it has not released. In 2020, during a podcast with his son, Donald Trump Jr., Trump said, "I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting." Side note, there were reports over the years that Donald Trump actually wanted to provide ET disclosure while he was president on the first go-around, but that he was talked out of it by both the United States government that he was interacting with, as well as the ETs themselves. And I just want to make the point that it is really, as much as the United States government does not want to admit it for a number of reasons, they're not necessarily the ones in charge compared to the ETs involved with the US government. So my statement on the matter is that at this time, it is also actually the ETs that do not want disclosure, because if they wanted disclosure already, we would have disclosure. So, I'm not sticking up for the United States government on this topic by any means. I think that we should have disclosure, and I think we will have disclosure. But to the extent that it hasn't happened yet, you have to imagine that if the ETs wanted it already, we would have had it already. So they don't want it just yet. In June of this year, Trump said that the government has information about UAPs that it has not released. I have access, he said, and I speak to people about it. I've had meetings on it, and they will tell you there's something going on. In 2021, former CIA Director John Brennan said, "I think some of the phenomena we may be seeing continue to be unexplained and might be some type of phenomenon that results from something that we don't know yet, understand, and could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life." The same year, the current Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, said UAPs could constitute non-human intelligence. In 2023, a high-ranking former intelligence officer named David Grush testified to Congress that the U.S. government had retrieved spacecraft of non-human origin and bodies, which U.S. government insiders told public was accurate. So let's not forget that one of the most important whistleblower testimonies that ever occurred has come in the last year or so with the testimony of David Grush. And even that, we were limited in scope because they are trying to keep him quiet. And we know from David himself that he has had his life threatened. He's had his medical files released illegally, which is a violation of HIPAA, to try to make him look crazy and discredit him. Again, all illegal. There is no limit to what the other side will do. What is legal, what is not legal is not important to them. We are essentially talking about a almost mafia-like cartel within government that is essentially above the law for the most part. Will it always be like that? We can only hope that it is not the case. But currently, it's as if we have a mafia cartel controlling the UAP phenomena, keeping it secret from Congress, and there's really nothing we could do about it except for these leaks that is going to push them to come forward into the light, and maybe eventually some people are going to be held responsible, because just like in the mafia in the streets, everyone has a price, and at some point everyone flips. So I would say that their days are numbered, but time will tell. We'll see where we are on the timeline. In July 2022, the Intelligence Community Inspector General concluded that Grush's complaint that elements of the intelligence community had withheld or hidden UAP-related information from Congress to purposely and intentionally thwart legitimate congressional oversight of the UAP program was both credible and urgent. So, this is not to say that there aren't good people in government as well that want disclosure, that want to follow the law. But it's right now the bad guys are winning. So it's a fight between the good guys and the bad guys. The bad guys are winning at the moment, but we are putting together a bigger team and we are fighting back. At the time, Charles McCullough III, the first Inspector General of the intelligence community, who the U.S. Senate had confirmed for his job in 2011, represented Grush. That does not mean that extraterrestrial beings occupy or are operating the UAPs, nor that the U.S. government and military contractors are hiding crashed alien spacecraft or bodies, as some former astronauts, former intelligence community officers, and former military leaders claim. I think Michael Shellenberger is just hedging himself a little bit here, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. There are other explanations for UAPs. Current dominant alternative theories, including those put forward by Arrow, are that UAPs are some kind of natural phenomenon we don't yet understand, like ball lighting or plasma. They could also be part of some new U.S. foreign government weapons programs, such as drones, aircraft, balloons, CGI hoaxes, or birds. So it's not to say that every UAP is alien or being controlled by an alien pilot, because the United States and potentially other governments, we have reverse engineered these craft, if you want to believe certain whistleblowers, which I'm going to take the position that I do. So, that's not necessarily that the statement is incorrect, but listen, we know where we reverse engineered it from. So whether it's the United States reverse engineered copy being driven by a human pilot, or the actual UAPs being driven by an alien, it came from somewhere, and we know where it came from. Other UAP skeptics say that some combination of government disinformation and social contagion, like the satanic panic of the 1980s or the Salem witch trials, among UAP believers in the U.S. military are driving the phenomenon. Skeptics and debunkers, I just got to say, is there more of an arrogant community that chooses to die on a hill of a weak argument and act like they won than people who consider themselves debunkers or skeptics? I think if we replace the word debunkers with dumb motherfuckers for a vast majority of the times that it comes up, it's going to put things in the proper context. Not that there aren't some things that shouldn't be debunked or you should be skeptical about, but even whenever there's so much evidence that you could fill up, the Vatican library with the amount of evidence for a single event, it is still never enough for them. They'll still try to be a skeptic and use a weak argument to debunk it. And I feel that this occurs a lot, let's say within government and politics, but also within the spiritual esoteric community, and even with ancient research work, such as, with Zecharia Sitchin and others as well. I forgot the name of these scientists. I think it was Robert something, but the individual that made the point years ago that the Great Sphinx has water erosion signs on it, and Egyptologists and other archaeologists for decades tried to deny that, but I think we've had much better evidence in the recent number of years that the water erosion is present on the Sphinx, and that dates it necessarily to be somewhere between 10 to 12,000 years old, probably closer to 12,000 years old. So skeptics and debunkers are generally almost always wrong. Let's not forget that there was a point in time where if you made the claim that the earth was round, the skeptics and debunkers told you the earth was flat and that you were crazy to believe anything else. And also keep in mind that all cutting edge science was once considered fringe science. And that by science, I mean science and technology. So any cutting edge science and technology that we have now, there was a point in time that you would have been called crazy for believing such a thing could exist. So keep that in mind as well. Is it possible that the Pentagon and CIA are still playing disinformation games with the American people to cover up UAP? I think so. Or that intelligence and security agencies, as well as politicians, are creating a UAP hoax to frighten the public? And is it possible that whistleblowers are fabricating parts or all of their testimony? The U.S. Air Force allegedly used this information against a UFO buff in the past to cover up a weapons program. Something similar could be happening today. However, no available evidence supports that theory. And so, while this possibility should not be ignored for it to be true, it would require a complicated conspiracy with unclear motivations. As Senator Rubio noted last year, most of the UAP whistleblowers have held very high clearances and high positions within our government. So you do ask yourself, what incentive would so many people with that kind of qualification, these are serious people, have to come forward and make something up? Rubio also said that individuals in high clearances and high positions within our government with first-hand knowledge of UAPs were fearful of harm coming to them. So basically, the people with the best information that could come forward and provide whistleblower testimony are having their lives threatened if it is known that they're going to come forward. Grush and other UAP whistleblowers say the government retaliated against them and tried to stop them from going public. Last year, Senator Gillibrand said, "There's a lot of fear, and so I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it. I don't know if we'll ever get the information about special access programs that I need to know. Only that Congress has not been read in on. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. We obviously need much better laws to protecting whistleblowers, and we need new laws to regulate the intelligence community, where it's basically just operating like an illegal cartel, as I stated before. So we could get to the bottom of it. We need better laws, and we need to enforce the laws, and we need better witness protection programs so that these people with the right information that could come forward don't feel like they're going to get murdered if they come forward." In 2021, John Ratcliffe, the director of the National Intelligence under former President Trump, said that UAP demonstrated technologies that we don't have, and frankly, that we are not capable of defending against. And Ratcliffe said U.S. intelligence analysts had high confidence that foreign adversaries were not behind the famous Tic Tac UAP that 4 Navy pilots encountered over the water. Last October, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and DoD published their 2023 annual report on UAPs. It said that many reports from military witnesses do present potential safety of flight concerns, and there are some cases where reported UAP have potentially exhibited one or more concerning performance characteristics, such as high-speed travel or unusual maneuverability. Finally, many videos and photographs cannot be easily dismissed, and people have reported similar UAPs before drones, aircraft, and CGI existed or were widespread. And now, existing and former U.S. government officials have told members of Congress that AARO and the Pentagon have broken the law by not revealing a significant body of information about UAPs, including military intelligence databases that have evidence of their existence as physical craft. And let's not forget that whenever you're conducting a secret illegal program and keeping Congress in the dark, where are you getting the money from to run the program? So the money is either being siphoned off illegally from legal programs, or it is being generated in a way that is just completely illegal, of which I don't want to speculate because it's going to sound like a conspiracy theory, but you're either siphoning it off from legal programs, or you're doing something illegal to generate large sums of revenue, or you're committing theft from something, someone, somewhere, if it is not a U.S. legal program. So any of those options, it's not good. If you have to fund a large program illegally, where are you getting the money from? It's going to be very, very sketchy at the least. And I'll just add to that point, the Pentagon has not passed an audit since God knows when. Every year, the Pentagon is quote unquote missing. They cannot find. They just somehow lost. There was an oversight of $6 billion or so dollars. How the fuck do you lose sight of $6 billion plus dollars on a year after year after year basis? So that would point to that they're mostly funding by siphoning off illegally from legal programs. You don't misplace $6 billion plus a year, year after year, whenever you're the most important institution, maybe in the world, but especially in the US government. Accountants aren't dumb. It's not such complicated math. It's not string theory. You cannot accidentally lose $6 billion plus dollars. All right, let's carry on. One of these individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. The person has written a report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Let's not forget Roswell, New Mexico was 1947, and David Grush, I believe, in his testimony said that there was even something that is much less known about, which occurred around 1937. So we're talking a pretty long time here. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive Department of Defense USAP. The source of the document told public that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military's family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. Public, which again is the name of the Substack, is revealing its name here for the first time. So here's the big reveal. The name of the program is called Immaculate Constellation. Underneath here, we have a photo being provided of an orb over Iraq. So the orb is right here. It's a little bit hard to see. But basically, it looks like a large flying silver ball bearing. It's circular. It's just silver and metallic. If you don't know what a ball bearing is, it basically looks like a billiard ball, except it's just silver and metal, and there's no number 8 on it. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and intelligence community database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full motion video, and still photography. So it is being claimed that this is being stored in a completely siphoned off and separated database. The government whistleblowers made their claims in a report provided to authorized committees of Congress and their staff. So the whistleblower has already informed Congress and numerous individuals of what he knows. The whistleblower alleges that the DoD created the USAP called Immaculate Constellation in 2017 after the New York Times published an article describing an informal Pentagon UAP program called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. The report shared with Congress says Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAPs and by both tasked and untasked collection platforms. The whistleblower's report includes 7 categories of evidence. It describes in detail various UAP sightings collected by technical assets and U.S. military personnel. The multitude of wavelengths collected by these sensors, the report says, have captured UAP characteristics that are difficult or impossible to observe with the human eye alone. So basically, with the naked eye, you can't see a lot of this, and you need to have special cameras to catch it. Subtle atmospheric effects associated with UAPs are also visible through the sensors employed by the U.S. military and intelligence agencies. The verifiable chain of custody for UAP quality, and then we have the acronym here, IMINT, Quality Imagery Intelligence collected by U.S. military assets, the person wrote, ensures a high level of confidence in the accuracy and integrity of the data gathered. So we're not talking about this blurry type of video that they occasionally release to us. We're talking about things that are very high quality HD. The report concludes that the existence of Immaculate Constellation demonstrates the extent capability to detect, quarantine, and transfer UAP and ARV, meaning alien reproduction vehicle, collection incidents before they are observed and circulated within the military intelligence enterprise, thus serving as a means of enforcing internal information security. A former intelligence community official confirmed to public the existence of Immaculate Constellation. That program is run out of SECDEF, Office of the Secretary of Defense. The person said they don't want to acknowledge it's real. So Immaculate Constellation is being run out of the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which that'll put a pretty big hole in the denial of the government and the Pentagon that UAP exists. This is not even necessarily a legal cartel-like part of the government, which certainly does exist, but this is out of the Secretary of Defense office. So this is on the up and up part of the government. The same person warned that simply printing the name Immaculate Constellation could trigger government surveillance under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of whoever publishes it. They won't comment on it, but talking about it will put you in the danger zone. They enforce the secrecy with a lot of vigor. The whistleblower's report said that a significant volume of intelligence reports documenting first-hand encounters with unidentified anomalous phenomena or unidentified flying objects by DoD personnel exists within Defense HUMINT, Human Intelligence Databases accessible to the intelligence community. Immaculate Constellation includes high-quality imagery intelligence and measurement and signature intelligence of UAPs, the whistleblower's report adds. The source of this intelligence are a blend of directed and incidental collection capabilities positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, as well as military and civilian aviation altitudes and maritime environments. So basically, we're talking about getting video from all over the place. Could be civilian, could be military, could be over the land, could be over the sea. A lot of different types of videos. The report to Congress describes in detail various UAPs. From 91 to 2022, the most common UAP shapes reported in the U.S. government data set were spheres or orbs, discs or saucers, ovals or tic-tacs, triangles, boomerang, arrowhead, and irregular/organic. So triangle in particular is interesting because if you remember the Phoenix Lights incident, that was all triangles. The report describes various incidents found in the HUMINT databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. The F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs, according to the report. The F-22 is the best shit that we have on the public ledger anyway. And the F-22 was just dominated and smacked around like it was your little brother. Boxed out by 3 to 6 UAPs. A complete show of domination over our best craft. One UAP maneuvered in proximity, greater than 12 meters, to the area directly starboard of the cockpit. There, the UAP established a rigid spatial relationship with the F-22, maintaining its exact position and orientation parallel with the F-22's cockpit, despite multiple evasive rolls and maneuvers. Surrounded by the presumed hostile UAPs, the F-22 was forced out of the mission area under the escort of UAP formation. So the UAPs, they didn't cause any harm, they didn't shoot at it, they basically just forced it out and said, get the hell out of here. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from a high altitude to 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN, which is an aircraft carrier. The UAPs appeared to emit a soft orange-red light, which bizarrely did not illuminate the ocean or the flight deck of the CVN, despite the visual appearance of intense luminosity. The surface of the UAP was observed to be dynamic, roiling like the surface of the sun. That is very interesting. I have no idea what that really means. And I would say at this time, neither does anyone else. Okay, UAP disinformation and disclosure. We have a nice photo here of Nancy Mace. She is leading the charge. God bless Nancy Mace on this one. And James Comer. So like I said, we do have good guys in the government that are trying to get this out. And it's really just a fight between the good and the bad right now. The Pentagon has changed the names of its UAP investigations. From 2009 to 2017, the Pentagon had a program called Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program to investigate UAP reports. After funding ran out, the informal program ATIP continued in its wake. From 2017 to 2022, the Pentagon called its study of UAPs the UAP Task Force. This is starting in 2022 by order of Congress. The Pentagon has had the public-facing program Arrow to study reports of UAP and release information to the public. One possibility is that Arrow's work is a continuation of the U.S. government's UAP public relations not its UAP investigations. Since 1953, when the CIA's Robertson panel recommended a strategy of using experts to dismiss and ridicule UAP witnesses and government whistleblowers. So basically, ridicule, humiliation, trying to make people seem crazy. This has been the go-to move of the government since it all started decades ago. And we see that even in regular society. Whenever you bring good, credible evidence to people that they don't want to even consider the subject or your evidence at all, they will just be dismissive and use ridicule, when in fact it is them that deserve to be ridiculed, if anything. A declassified 1971 Australian government memo about UAPs claimed that the CIA urged the debunking of UFO sightings as cover of its efforts to develop craft powered by anti-gravity. So we have information here now that the US government has been working on anti-gravity craft since at least 1971, if not earlier. And if you look into the government programs, Philadelphia Experiment and Montauk Project, which are related, and it's something that I will cover in the future on its own podcast, I will make the argument that really the government has had these probably since the 50s. And not only that, the government has access to technology that originated from ETs that aren't even being reported on at all right now. I don't want to mention it in this podcast because I don't want it to sound too conspiracy theory-like. I rather present it with its own set of evidence and science to provide it the credibility it deserves. But I'll say that if you follow those two government programs and all the information associated with that the United States and possibly other governments as well has far, far greater technology than what is being even remotely discussed in the minority or alternative media. The CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, wrote an Australian military officer acting through the Robertson panel meeting of mid-Jan 1953, persuaded the U.S. Air Force to use Project Blue Book as a means of publicly debunking UFOs, and at a later stage to allocate funds for the AVRO, Advanced Saucer Aircraft, and the launching of Crash Program into anti-gravity power. So we have a history of public government programs that their existence is purely to debunk the UAP phenomena. So whenever we look at Arrow, for example, now, this is basically the modern day Project Blue Book. It is a government program put out to quote unquote study the phenomenon, but really it's put out there to debunk it and say that it's not true. And at the same time, whenever you're soliciting witnesses and testimony to prove UAPs, but the program is really built to debunk UAPs, you're basically falsely scheming these individuals so that you can find out who they are, and then you can control them, and then you could shut them up and shut them down. So that is a very, very illicit type of operation, and something you would find being done by an organization that acts as if they are an illegal cartel. And like I said, the government is very compartmentalized. You have its good parts, its bad parts, its on the books parts, its off the book parts. So to be clear, we have parts of the government that are on the book and parts of the government that are off the book that are both trying to debunk and hide and shut down UAP disclosure. But the ones that are off the book operate in even more of a cartel manner and conduct even more illegal activity in terms of how they fund their program and how they shut down potential threats to them, or that they deem are potential threats to them, which could be anything that David Grush is reporting to you. So like I said, he has said his life has been threatened. There is not a greater threat than that. His personal medical records have been released, showing that he had something along the lines of depression. He sought therapy, PTSD, whatever it was. But the point was to make it look as if he was crazy. So these are the types of dirty games that they can and will play. The memo describes the CIA's strategy to discredit UAP witnesses and whistleblowers. By erecting a facade of ridicule, the U.S. hoped to allay public alarm, reduce the possibility of Soviet taking advantage of UFO mass sightings for either psychological or actual warfare purposes, and act as a cover for the real U.S. program of developing vehicles that emulate UFO performances. Other documents support this picture of the U.S. government disinformation. Brigadier General Carol H. Bolander signed a 1969 memo stating that the Air Force had withheld UAP sightings from the Air Force's UAP research program, Project Blue Book, and that it had continued to track UAPs afterward. Arrow's former head, Sean Kirkpatrick, has disparaged the UAP whistleblowers and speculated that a tic-tac-shaped UAP, then Navy pilots in 2004 reported had evaded their approach, could have been backyard lighting balloons. Sean Kirkpatrick, please stop embarrassing yourself. I'm aware that Sean Kirkpatrick has stepped down since then, but what absolute and complete nonsense. Could you not even come up with a more intelligent lie to try to dissuade people? A backyard balloon for the Tic Tac video? Are you completely out of your mind? All right, don't get me started. Let's keep going. Finally, others speculate that the US government is already engaged in a controlled disclosure of the reality of UAPs through strategic leaks of photos, videos, and documents. Under this theory, the US military and intelligence community are playing a double game, officially denying the existence of NHIs, which is non-human intelligences, while also approving the release of photographs, video, and information from whistleblowers. The New York Times reported that former Pentagon official and UAP whistleblower Lou Elizondo got Pentagon approval to publish his new book, Imminent, partly by attributing some of the information to other sources whose comments had previously been approved. Elizondo also said he was not approved to discuss his involvement in any other secret projects beyond the program he once led. However, Elizondo says he resigned after religious military officials who viewed UAPs as demonic undermined his work. A leading UAP researcher who utilizes the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, to find out what the government knows, John Greenwald, told Public last year that the U.S. government had been increasingly denying his request for UAP information. So I want to make a statement here on these religious government insiders who view the UAPs and ETs as demonic, because this is a complete misunderstanding and mistranslation of Bible scripture. And I could give you a very, very simple example. Let's say that there is a politician who I'm not a big fan of. Let's take like a Rashida Tlaib, for example, who is openly anti-Semitic and just says the most ridiculous things, in my point of view. I understand that that in itself is a controversial statement. Some people watching this video might feel the same, or they might be Rashida Tlaib fans. I think she's absolutely out of control and out of her mind. So let's say that I want to call her a demon, I want to say she's demonic. So even though I don't like her or her policies, is Rashida Tlaib actually a demon? Is Rashida Tlaib actually demonic? No, of course not. It is just simply, maybe playful is not the best word, but it is tongue-in-cheek language. It is just assigning a name with a negative connotation to your enemy. So in the Bible, whenever it uses language like this, it is one side vilifying the other side. And of course, if you watched my introductory video and you got an idea of what my core work is, which is basically continuing on the work of Zecharia Sitchin and ancient astronaut theory, taking the translation and perspective through that prism of ancient astronaut theory, that the Elohim of the Bible are in fact the Anunnaki, where God, the creator of the universe and everything in it, is a separate entity the Kabbalistic term Ein Sof refers to. We are basically talking about one side, the Elohim, vilifying the other side, their enemies, which would be, let's say, Baal, Marduk, and all that is associated with that. So it is just one side vilifying the other side and calling them demons because they are against them, they hate them, and it is essentially war. So it is just a tongue-in-cheek name to vilify your adversary. They are not demons. A demon, in the true sense of the word demon, would be an energy that has negative intentions, a spirit with negative intentions. Now, also drawing on my first video, which is something I'm going to be getting into in much greater detail as we are creating the audio book of the Gateway process, come to understand that the spirit is who you are, and a body is just like a home for your spirit. Your body is where your spirit lives. So you are an embodied spirit, where a demon is a disembodied spirit, meaning it is also an energy, the same way you are an energy. A spirit is energy. And as I explained slightly in my initial video, you are essentially a separated piece of that infinite consciousness, that electromagnetic wave, which is the infinite energy of God, and you are a sliced off piece of that. So whether you may be someone who is positive or negative, you are an embodied spirit. A disembodied spirit is a spirit like you, except it does not live in a body. It is essentially, let's say, floating around the ether, whether it's, within our atmosphere or in space, etc. But a demon is a disembodied spirit who has negative intentions. Now, this is something that I'll go into in greater detail on other more specific podcasts, but I think it's so important to understand that individuals that control our society, that control UAP and ET disclosure, don't even have a proper understanding of what a demon is and mistranslate it from Bible scripture and use that as justification to suppress disclosure to the masses of this planet. Can you even wrap your head around how absolutely ridiculous that is? And how is it that these individuals reach the points of power that they have when they cannot make this simple connection and understand what a demon actually is and what a tongue-in-cheek vilification of a name label is? Absolutely scary. All right, let's move on. And now in a forthcoming documentary, the program about the U.S. government's alleged UAP retrieval program by James Fox, Kirk McConnell, a 37-year congressional staffer for the U.S. Senate and House Select Committees on Intelligence, describes the testimony that members of Congress and staffers have heard. We have sources who have asserted not only that there have been crashes, said McConnell, but there have been crash retrievals. The U.S. government appears to know significantly more about UAPs than it is revealing. But even those who believe the U.S. government has revealed all that it knows should have no objection to congressional demands for greater disclosure. Individuals have told public that many within the DoD, the intelligence community, and military contracting community oppose further disclosure. In April of this year, the Pentagon released declassified documents showing that a proposed Department of Homeland Security program was intended to take possession of UAPs and attempt to reverse engineer retrieved UAPs if they exist. While the department's then top scientists advocated for the program and said there was very serious science involved with it, DHS leadership ultimately quashed the proposal, despite support from Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and former Senator Joe Lieberman. According to the declassified minutes from the meeting, Reid and Lieberman advocated for this proposed UAP reverse engineering program with some sense of urgency. In late September, in answer to the question, is there actual recovered NHI tech, Harold Malmgren, a former advisor to Presidents Kennedy and Johnson and Nixon, said on X, the answer is yes, in several different hands, both government and private. And private, of course, is referring to the military-industrial complex, Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and the like. Since 2021, members of Congress have expressed growing frustration over the military and intelligence community's refusal to reveal concrete information to them. The Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025 would cut off funding for any activity involving UFOs protected under any form of special access or restricted access limitations, not reported to Congress as required by law. In other words, notes analyst Marique Van, I'm not even going to try that last name, despite Arrow's sweeping denials of the secret, unreported UF activities, the Senate Intelligence Committee believes that such programs do indeed exist. Congressional leaders are seeking to expand upon UAP disclosure legislation passed last year. They want to force the U.S. military, intelligence community, and contractors to turn over crashed UAPs and reveal what else they know. Representative Nancy Mace has announced congressional hearings on the topic on November 13th, and Senator Kristen Gillibrand announced that she will chair a Senate Armed Services Committee subcommittee hearing on UAPs sometime this year. Now, Jeremy Corbell, who is a big figure in UAP disclosure, has said that some major information is coming out on this hearing on November 13th. So this will be an important date to pay attention to. Jeremy Corbell has said that there is no stopping the information from coming out, and basically the government can do it either the easy way or the hard way, but the information is coming either way. The legislation would also expand protections for whistleblowers and require the Government Accountability Office to review Arrow's work. This formal review by Congress's in-house investigative agency is a stark demonstration of the Senate Intelligence Committee lack of confidence in Arrow. It appeared that the UAP disclosure legislation had died last month, but Senator Mike Rounds told journalist Matt Laszlo, let me put it this way, it's not out yet, and that NDAA's negotiations continue. Even so, few expect the legislation to succeed in its current form. Whatever happens with the legislation, the historical evidence, whistleblowers, and critics of AARO have put its legitimacy in question. While UAPs remain mysterious, it's clear that the US government is not being transparent about what it knows about them. We have an update underneath here. Sugo, Department of Defense spokesperson, responded on October 8th. Her full unedited response is below. I'm not even going to bother reading it. We know that this is just going to be some nonsense, disinformation, and denial. But overall, this has been a very groundbreaking article by Michael Shellenberger. We now have the name of the program. We know where it is run out of. The November 13th hearings are coming up soon. I'm sure we're going to get some bombshell information there. Like I said, the good guys are ganging up in terms of leveling up and adding more people to fight the bad guys, aka the ones trying to keep this suppressed. I will continue to provide updates on this on my channel. It is not my core work, but being that it is related, I am going to continue to report on it. And if you didn't see my opening video titled Links Between Ufology and Kabbalah, which Kabbalah is a sect of Judeo-Christian mysticism, I am taking things back to the ancient times under what's known as ancient astronaut theory, which was something that was popularized by Zecharia Sitchin. And for those smirking and thinking Zecharia Sitchin, oh, he's been debunked. No, he has not. Zecharia Sitchin has never been debunked. Any argument claiming to do so is just a typical weak argument that skeptics and so-called debunkers like to stand on, but they're not worth the paper that they print on. So I am taking the ancient astronaut theory that the Elohim of the Bible is a separate concept from God, which there's the Kabbalistic term Ein Sof, meaning infinite consciousness, infinite energy. And what I submit to you is infinite speed of vibrations, allowing for a state of all potentiality. This is what God is, versus the Elohim, which is a plural Hebrew word. And this plural Hebrew word Elohim is actually referring to the group of deities that are the Mesopotamian gods. They are the pharaohs of Egyptian mythology, and they are basically the race termed the Anunnaki, as it is described in ancient Mesopotamian tablets. So being that we are getting disclosure, or we're getting closer to disclosure, and I'll make the case that we live in the time of disclosure, there is no better time to understand, looking back at the Bible, the differentiation between Elohim, that group of deities, the pantheon of leadership, versus what I mentioned Ein Sof is a moment ago, that infinite energy, where you can also understand that light equals energy, that infinite electromagnetic wave, aka Ein Sof, the infinite photon of infinite consciousness, of infinite creativity, that is in existence in the form of energy that is known as love, which is also making a characteristic of Ein Sof, infinite love. This is really more the core of my work, at least the initial core, where I am providing an audio book of the declassified CIA document known as the Gateway Process, with translation and commentary. And I am connecting it to works of Kabbalah, where the book that I wrote, titled Connect to Source, it connects the declassified CIA document known as the Gateway Process to the first book of Kabbalah known as the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation, where I am showing that they mirror each other in terms of the description of the genesis of the universe. And I am making the claim that what people who consider the golem to be mythical believe is incorrect. The golem, which is mentioned in the Bible and other books of commentary such as Talmud and Gemara, is not a mythical folklore figure, and that the science for the creation of a golem is listed in the CIA document as well, specifically the section called patterning. And in the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, it is half about the creation of the universe and half about the creation of what is known as the golem. And I am showing how and why it is real and not a myth. So if you like what you heard here, please subscribe to the channel. Please like, comment, and share it with friends and family. I'm going to be continuing in the upcoming podcast with the narration of the Gateway Process audiobook. And following the completion of the audiobook, I'll be going into a deep dive on the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation as well, connecting it back to the Gateway Process. And this is just the start of my journey. Beyond that, I will be covering all the books of Kabbalah and Merkavah mysticism, which is Judeo-Christian mysticism, other books of mysticism from other religions, other ancient texts, and of course, like I mentioned, anything that I think is worth covering, I'll just categorize it as random thoughts and reactions. But like UAP disclosures and some other things, you can expect me to provide video on them. So again, thank you for joining me. Hope that you will join me on the next one as well. Aleph Lev out.